July of 2001, Comedy Central aired an episode of South Park entitled Super Best Friends, in which several religious persons were caricatured, including the Islamic prophet Mohammed. Then history happened. First, 2 months later, the World Trade Center was destroyed by Islamic extremists. Then in September of 2005, a Danish paper ran a series of cartoons depicting the prophet Mohammed, and all hell broke loose. There was rioting and destruction as Islamic extremists protested the supposed insult to their prophet. Several Western news agencies reporting on the story wouldn't even show the offending cartoons, opting to blur the images for fear of reprisals. In April of the following year, South Park decided to revisit the subject of Muhammad, specifically with the intent of addressing the issue of showing his image. However, Comedy Central, the network home of South Park, opted to censor the images, showing only placeholder cards instead. Then the following year, in August of 2007, the cartoon Opus ran a cartoon as part of a series in which a character explores several different world religions. In the cartoon in question, the character discusses joining Islam. Several papers decided against running the episode. They had no problem running cartoons in which the character considered several other religions. It was only the Islamic cartoon that they refused to run. Even more refused to run the follow-up cartoon the following week. Then in the most recent episode of South Park, the creators decided once again to address the issue of censoring images of the Prophet of Islam. This time they opted to disguise the Prophet and show him only in a bear suit. The result? The creators of the show have received death threats. And so, in response to this, I have decided to join several other members of the YouTube community and stand up to the bullying of these fascist, small-minded religious thugs. You cannot intimidate us all. But really, what would you gain if you could intimidate us all? If every person in the world cowed to your threats and acquiesced, would that be respect for your prophet, or would it be fear of reprisal? Would it mean you'd won our hearts and minds, or would it mean you'd won our consent? And it's not as if there's any reason to believe that the intimidation would end. There's no reason to assume that the respect would be reciprocal. Consider the case of the Buddhas of Bamyan. These artistic representations of the Buddha had been carved into the mountains of Afghanistan in the 6th century. In 2001, shortly before the World Trade Center episode, a mullah in Afghanistan representing the Taliban ordered them dynamited. This, despite protests and requests and even offers of money from all over the world. Somehow these artifacts, which had been around as long as Islam itself, were an affront to God. Also, just this week, a cleric in Iran declared that the immodest dress of women was causing earthquakes. These lunatics have a long-standing track record of not caring about free expression or personal freedom. Giving in to them is the exact opposite of what we should be doing, and for that reason, I won't. Will you? What I do here is not intended as an insult to Islam as a whole, and I mean it as much as an insult to the management of CNN, King World Syndicates, and Comedy Central as anything else. Stand up, jackasses. Stand up and represent free speech, or get the hell out of your offices and let a man with actual balls have your position. America doesn't need the Taliban or the corporate Talibani enablers.